Hello! It's been months since Baldur's Gate 3 was published, and I'm finally getting around to making these videos that I wanted to make about it. So, basically after beating the game multiple times, I decided to dip into modding a little bit, and discovered some very fun interactions between mods. So that brings us this video, beating Baldur's Gate 3 with an army of Kobolds. Using a mod called Fantastical Multiverse. I am able to make a champion, Kashak of Agok. And his purpose is to show the world the power of kobolds. So we find ourselves on the Nautiloid, in which I will now show Kashak's special ability here. Using this special powerful ring of kobold summoning, he can summon an army of kobolds at will. And in addition, he can grant them enlightenment to make them stronger during battle. It takes a little bit of setup in order to make a small army of kobolds at first, but
the casing is fragile.
It's all worth it in the end. Of course, I try to investigate that pool and find it to be a bit violent. Go collect a few things in this room before heading on to the room with us. This will be our first ally to assist us in showing showing the world the power of kobolds. So we do some quick dexterity save to free us from the skull of the thralls. And of course us tells us to make our way to the helm. Not like there's anywhere else to go, so of course we go that way. We gotta see Lae'zel over here, who tells us to fight these imps, so we get our first look into actually fighting. Unfortunately, my kobold army didn't get the memo and got caught up there, so I'm gonna have to summon in a few more kobolds in the actual fight. Luckily, it doesn't cost any resources, part of the power of this mod. Some might say it's unbalanced, but honestly, the kobolds are useless, so doing 1 damage on their own. So I think it's pretty fine. Besides, I'm not going for being fair to the game. I'm just going to have fun with an army of kobolds. Anyhow, Agok summons himself a bunch of kobolds, grants them AI to control them during battle. And then we make our way through the rest of the Nautiloid real quickly grabbing Shadowheart over here. With a bit of speedy dialogue and a quick wisdom save. Fortunately, I didn't get the critical fail that I always seem to get with that save. Now we pick up Shadowheart here, have her join our party.
Let me come with you. She's right.
Tell her to get going. I did some setting up so that she has the right spells before going into the fight. Luckily, I had a massive army at the point that I got to actually getting into this fight. And I figured I would summon even more, because it would take some time for my current army to get anywhere where they can actually do anything. These 3 in the back I decided to give a little bit of advanced power, because they would be able to do even more damage than the ones that I'm giving first. Because, I mean, at least I tried to balance it slightly. Because I have 2 power levels of enlightenment, really. Though each of the power levels includes several different archetypes. There's a power level in which they get a small bonus to damage, and then there's a more powerful one that they get a little bit higher bonus to damage. So I started out with the smaller bonus near at the beginning of the game, mostly to just at least try to stay balanced. Though, I don't think the point of this is to be balanced. You'll see in later fights where I start to just use the more powerful one anyway, because it tends to be better. Now, of course, I don't want the commander to kill the mind flare too quickly, so I make him drop his weapon, and I found out that one of my kobolds can actually move around the weapon. So I spent a bit of time moving it away from the commander and towards Lae'zel, who would be able to pick it up. So after a little bit of finagling, I managed to get the sword to a more accessible location for Lae'zel, though I can't get it too far because I ran out of movement speed after a point. And it was just a quick jump and a skip through Lae'zel to get to it. From there, I've sped up the footage because it took absolutely forever for even one round to be finished. As you can see, it is still round 14, and the fight, yeah, it takes absolutely forever. This is a common thing for a lot of fights throughout the game. So don't be surprised if I increase the speed of the footage. And in fact, don't be surprised if I increase the speed of the actual game, like I have done right here, because it can be painful for even me. Because, I mean, it's not the fastest, but at least because I can lighten my kobolds, I don't have to actually control each one of them and do one damage at a time. Because this would be completely unfeasible if I had to micromanage every last attack and they did one damage at most. So speeding through a bit here, just to get through a couple of the rounds for real quick to finally make our way up towards the helm. And some, and then the other enemies. Of course, because a lot of the kobolds are just sitting around doing nothing, they make their way over to the other ones, the other enemies to defeat. We speed through here, eventually killing the commander after way too many rounds. So we still have 10 more rounds to this combat before the Nautiloid crashes. And there is a point that because the AI can't actually get to where they need to be because the enemies in the back are in the way, or in a hallway where they can't really get anywhere. Of course, the Mind Flayer, he gets pissed off, and so we have to deal with him. The two Cambions in the back, unfortunately, because they're in a hallway, most of my kobolds can't even get to them. So a lot of them ended up getting into just like running into random places, it felt like. We're gonna speed right through here. I definitely couldn't kill the Cambions because they were doing not enough damage at a time and over the few turns that I had left. So I quickly just made my way off the Nautiloid and we make our way to I woke up on the beach, of course, with letting the cinematic play out for a bit.
The
I've been
tadpoles
a bit
squirm
exhausted
in your
after
skull.
that fight at this point.
Chaos, and you'll need to do it. The tadpole is a death scent.
After I got everything, I got myself leveled up here. I set up a little bit of an army, killed Shadowheart because, well, I don't like Shadowheart. It's an arbitrary hate for her. Don't worry about it. And because I could, I figured I'd just try to go into the crypt right now, and, well, it worked. So we quickly made our way over to this trap, which I didn't notice the trap at first. I already know that this trap is here, though, so I know that I can activate it and then just go quickly, like, press this button. And it's as simple as that. Just grab the key out of there and we can head deeper into the crypt. I actually had to go back a bit there to grab a different thing, but from one of the other things, because I forgot about it initially. Make our way over to the main area where we can find withers later. Quickly nabbed a few things from the bodies and then went back to this button, pressed it, opening the secret room, but making the skeletons wake up. So we let my army of kobolds do their thing, each of them dashing at first because it takes a while for them to actually be able to get to somewhere where they can actually attack. I later find out a trick to assist them in being able to attack when they're out of melee range, but I did not know it yet at this point. So I had to wait for them to all just make their way over very physically and punch them, doing minimal damage, but more damage than usual, because these enemies in particular actually have vulnerability to bludgeoning damage, which is the only type of damage that the kobolds can do. So they do like double damage against these enemies in particular. But of course, because the last enemy was sitting in that corner, shooting them, camping with some ranged spells, my kobolds had to spend ages making their way over to them. After the fight, they all run towards me, which is adorable, honestly. Then we go and talk to Withers here real quick. Withers, of course, asks his question, and I respond with that all lives are equal. No life worth more than any other. Saying this because, of course, I believe that kobolds are just as great as any other life. And then from here, we actually make our way outside up to the encounter up here, in which these people are not very happy that we're here. So I let my army of kobolds do their thing. This is where I found out that the kobolds have a fun tendency with each other, where they'll try to shove each other out of the difficult terrain. Which I think that's just a really neat thing with the AI that I gave them. I didn't even think that they would do that, but if they have no other actions that they can take, they will purposely try to shove each other out of like areas of entanglement or the like ice or grease, that sort of stuff. Anything that's dangerous for them. But they will also avoid walking into those areas, or at least the ones that do damage, or acid, which doesn't do damage, but for whatever reason they refuse to walk over acid. I think you might see that in this fight, but it's not real prevalent to the story in this one. But they tend to avoid walking over certain terrain than others. In a later video, I actually have some hilarious clips in a later video that I'm gonna have to do because I don't have enough time in this first video to do it. But there was, I will say that there was a few times that there was a kobold who just kept on running over the same grease and being knocked prone to much hilarity. Anyway, these kobolds make their way over to the enemies slowly. Sped up, of course, because I increased the speed of the footage. This fight would take, I think this fight literally took 20 minutes in and among itself without, with having the kobolds, like the entire game sped up with a cheat engine. It literally takes forever for anything to happen. And it wasn't this fight, but I find out that me getting my own character involved tends to be to the detriment of the fight in the end. Won't see this in this fight or even in this video, but we'll see that eventually. Anyhow, back to why I have decided to take an army of kobolds and invade the Sword Coast with them. You see, I want to share the world the power of kobolds, but I also want to alleviate the plight of kobolds, because kobolds, they're always been mistreated, disrespected. They're considered hardly more than animals. So, and in addition, gnomes are jerks. We hate gnomes. Gnomes suck. Glittergold is the enemy. And Curdlemac is a failure of a god. That is why we have Agok. Agok is great. Agok has granted Akashak the ability to summon an infinite army of kobolds to destroy all who would consider kobolds to be nothing more than animals. And so we take our infinite army of kobolds and we attack those who would consider us lesser species. Now, this fight is very much of an example of why AoE spells are very effective against my strategy, and a great show of why the kobolds would shove each other out of the ice. Real fun. They certainly know how to team up. Of course, I noticed that my army was actually getting a little bit sparse, so I decided to add a few extras over in the back here. Though, looking at it now, post-recording, I had more than enough kobolds on my army already. But, I mean, I like to have a massive army of kobolds, so I figured I'd just make it bigger anyway. Now, of course, this is before the game starts to slow down a ton, because the game really doesn't like it when you have 30, 40 entities in every fight. And turns take absolutely forever. If I was playing how you were intended to play, turns go by relatively quickly, but this is definitely a mode in which the game is slowed down. It takes a regular encounter that could take 5 minutes with an optimized group at most to a 30-minute fight that takes, a 30-minute fight at minimum if I wasn't using a program to increase the speed of my game. So with this new army of kobolds, I make my way over to Lae'zel, who I decide to just free from a distance. And then get into this fight with these tieflings, because they don't like that I freed Lae'zel. And I found that whenever I was post-recording, that the normal distance that it views everything at is a bit extreme for watchability, so I decided to zoom in a bit on the kobolds as they, because they are pretty small, and it does make it difficult to see what they're doing if you don't. But then again, because I am making it so fast, in future videos I might not zoom in so much on the activity, or I might not speed it up as much. We'll see. Because I don't really want these videos to go more than 30 minutes, because that would be suboptimal. After finally figuring out that thing with Zoe, I sent her off to camp because I don't really need her in my party right now. And, well, she hasn't shown herself to be an enemy to kobolds yet. And we make our way over to the first fight with goblins, with my massive army that outnumbers them at least 3 to 1, I think. I don't know, I don't know, I at no point know what the count of my army is. I just noticed that my army is lower in numbers or higher than in numbers, and I make more or don't make more accordingly. I really should track how many kobolds I have in my army at all times, but I don't know, this is funny. Now, with the commander up there, he does his horn thing. I found out later that the commander is just a piece of crap who doesn't care about anybody out here, because you can use that horn as many times as you want. It takes an action. But you could apply the temporary hit points on everyone that's outside of, like, in the immediate area. Like, every round. And while the goblins can still do damage faster than the temporary hit points, the temporary hit points certainly make them not able to kill you nearly as quick. So, I think, the Zevlor up there is a bit selfish here. He doesn't want you to actually survive. He just wants the goblins to be killed. And while he can actually handle all the goblins on his own, he'd rather just pick them off slowly after only doing the horn once than letting us deal with it and giving us temporary hit points every round. Anyhow, I mean, I also found out that if you kill Zevlor and all of the good guys and then just let the goblins live, they kind of just sit around. And they actually do block the ability to invade the grove later when you go to Minthara. At this point, I was not really sure what I was going to do with my, in regards to attacking the grove or attacking the goblins. And you'll see what I end up doing later in a later video. But here, we quickly just managed, like, the last couple of, the bugbears and the goblin boss. Now, the game is only sped up to, like, ×2 speed. Physically, the photos is not actually increased in speed. The game itself is increased in speed right now. Which I find out later has an adverse effect on the game. Sort of. I'll clarify that later. But in this fight, you can see that my army has surrounded the goblins entirely, to the point that most of the kobolds can't even reach an enemy. So they all sit here, jumping down and then running back up. Hilariously. I just found this amusing that they were doing this. just running up and back down. I also noticed that whenever they dash, they seem to be using the dash onto someone else. They're like, while it still afflicts them, it's like they're trying to afflict it onto someone else. I don't know why, but that just seems to be the case. They just select someone, and that person reacts like they had a spell cast on them, and then they move. Yeah, it was at this point that I noticed that the game was starting to get really laggy. I thought it was because I had so many kobolds and the area has lots of NPCs. And so I had to put in a bunch of testing to figure out why I was getting lag. Turns out that it was because the program I was using was still embedded of sorts to my game. And it was causing when I was turning off the speed hack to cause this tearing of sorts. And this like clicking with the camera. It's not as visible in the recording, but when playing it, it was annoying at best.
Then hurry up and do it.
I decided that I would free Saza, but that'll have to be for next video, because this video is actually drawn on to almost 30 minutes now, and, well, not 30 minutes, 27-ish minutes, but anything on beyond this would take too long. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate that. Hopefully I'll be able to make another one of these videos soon. It took me like 2 weeks to make this one after getting the recording like 2 weeks ago. So, because I kept on procrastinating the actual voice recording. So,